I think you are the best person, the most qualified person to be mayor of this city in its next episode. Your qualities, I think, are they're unquestionable. I think that's why your qualifications are unquestionable. That's why nobody challenged your petitions. Because they know that if they challenged you, they're challenging the entire future of this city. Because you are the future.
Well, I think that means a lot, especially coming from you. You have a long history in Chicago as a political reporter, as knowing the ins and outs of this city, politically and otherwise. And just your perspective as far as what the city actually needs and what kind of leadership the city needs, I think helps to give some context to why this election is so critical.
We have to have a separation from the past. We really do. And I'm not talking about just some radical throw everything out that we've ever done before. No, but we have to have, in this next leadership generation, we have to have a separation from the past. New ideas. New ideas right now, I think, are paramount. I don't hear anyone else with the kinds of ideas that you have who's running right now.
Yeah.
And they kind of look at you like, city bank? Bank? What is that?
We're talking about proposals that would fundamentally transform the economy. So the public bank is just one of those ideas. And I've worked on this issue actually nationally. And it is all about having a financial institution whose only allegiance is to make sure that the city has a strong economy, funding our infrastructure projects, being able to issue loans for small business owners, home loans, avoiding the toxic swap deals and bad bank deals that we've paid hundreds of millions of dollars out to private financial institutions. Those are the kinds of things that are actually transformative. And when you think about what it takes to create a growth economy, we can't just chip away at the edges of our fiscal challenges. We have to really be bold about the kind of solutions that'll move us forward.
You know, I have taken those talking points, spoken them to my friends or people at cocktail parties, and they say, "What is she, some kind of socialist?"
No. It's not about being a socialist. It's actually about understanding deeply the challenges that Chicago has faced with being fiscally solvent and fiscally sound. It is understanding that we have never addressed Chicago's revenue, how we generate revenue for this city. We've never addressed our population decline, which is the loss of our property tax dollars, which actually supports the city. And we've never really been creative about the kinds of economic development tools that will actually move communities forward. So it's not about being socialist so much as it's about what are some ideas that we haven't tried that are actually being tried elsewhere around the country. One example is I work in the small business sector. I do this citywide and statewide. And we know traditional small business owners and how important they are to the economy. But there are also models, for example, it's called the worker co-op model, where the employees are actually the owners. This is a way of building wealth with individuals, especially in communities where they've been cut off from avenues of wealth building. And when you talk about something like cooperative ownership and cooperative models, those conversations are essential in a city that's struggling with displacement, with gentrification, and with increasing income inequality. These models are actually being tried across the country, but in Chicago, because we've not had creative leadership and bold leadership, we're falling behind, or we're actually playing catch up.
Does the business community, the so-called downtown business guys, do they have anything to worry about with Amara Enyia as mayor?
They have a lot to look forward to because they have a vested interest in making sure that this entire city succeeds. They have a vested interest in making sure that we have a highly educated workforce, which means we have to invest in Chicago public schools. We have to invest in the things that create a highly skilled workforce in the trades. There's some high value add sectors in advanced manufacturing and coding and information technology. We have to be building pipelines into those sectors, and they have a vested interest because they will want to hire locally. They have a vested interest in having a safe city where their employees won't have to be afraid of crime in their neighborhoods. They have a vested interest in the city actually having revenue and being able to improve the quality of services for its residents. And they also have a vested interest in the city having a strong tax base upon which to create stronger neighborhoods and stronger communities. So there's no division between, say, the corporate class, what's in the interest of the corporate class, and what's in the interest of, for example, the neighborhoods. If we make sure that development is balanced, that we are responsible with how we use our tax dollars, and that we actually invest in our communities, they can only stand to benefit.
As a political independent, I am impressed by the fact that you and your campaign is not so connected to any of the political establishment. But how will you get the best people to come work for your administration? Are they going to be entirely new people that we've never heard from before? Or will there be some of the old and some of the new?
Well, there will be individuals that share the values that our campaign talks about. So we talk a lot about equity. Equity is a matter of policy and what it looks like to have equity in all aspects, whether in the economy, in education, in housing. We talk about transparency, and you need people who have a culture that fosters transparency in government that happens in the light of day. We talk about integrity and leadership. Chicago is known for, unfortunately, corruption. You have to attract people who want to foster integrity, who don't want corrupt institutions in the city of Chicago, and who are willing to be accountable to the residents of Chicago. So it's less about the mix of new and old and more about what kinds of individuals both have the experience in those areas of expertise, but also have the values that we talk about throughout this campaign that prioritize the people of Chicago over and above all else.
So we aren't going to see very many of the so-called usual suspects.
Well, a lot of the usual suspects have led us to the current circumstances. I mean, the city is struggling financially. We are struggling in our education system. Far too many don't have access to affordable housing. And a lot of people have simply checked out because they don't see a path to being able to thrive in the city. And in fact, many of those individuals and families have decided to move out of the city altogether. That is what the usual suspects, that is what the status quo has brought us. It has brought us to where we are today. If we want something different, and if we want the city to be better than it has been, it requires a different kind of leadership with different values and the willingness to move us forward.
I'm not going to ask you how old you are, okay?
I heard it's not polite to ask.
I'm not going to do that.
I don't mind. I think even for our seniors, even for our elders, what they want primarily is to be able to be comfortable even in those later years. They don't want to have to worry about their taxes increasing, especially for those on a fixed income. They want to be able to sit outside on their porch and know that they can enjoy the weather in Chicago's summertime, right? They want to know that their kids and their grandkids can get access to a quality school. These are the things that people in their older years want to be relaxed about. They don't want to have to worry about their benefits.
How should we have confidence in someone who's in their mid-30s?
Yes.
Can provide that, can do that?
Because of the willingness to actually implement a lot of these policy proposals that will tangibly affect their lives. When we talk about generating revenue for the city, that makes sure that our seniors don't have to pay or increasing fines and fees and tickets and taxes that they've been paying over the last several years. I mean, those costs have gone up exponentially, and many of them are on a fixed income. When we talk about reimagining Chicago public schools to make sure that it is an equitable school system where everyone can get access to a quality education, that directly affects their children and their grandchildren. When we talk about doing away with corruption, that is literally saving the city hundreds of millions of dollars that we now pay on everything from police misconduct cases to other lawsuits that the city has to essentially waste money on. And when we talk about what it means to move the city into the future, we can show our elders and our seniors that they have a place in that future, that their lived experience can serve as a guide, but what this next generation has is the ideas and the energy and the commitment to actually move us forward aggressively, because we can't afford to stay in the same circumstances that we're in.
I believe you. I believe you. How are you going to convince those people who have been stuck in this rut, who have voted year after year after year, generally for the same people, or for the same promises, that they've got to change, that there's got to be a new generation of leadership? And when I say generation, I don't necessarily mean age. I just mean a new way of looking at our city and how it works.
Yes, and that is we want to lead by example. So our campaign embodies the things that we talk about. First, we're just committed to being authentic and honest with people. So our message is not with empty rhetoric or platitudes. It is telling people specifically, here are the things that we can actually change in city government, and here's how it affects you. That's the first thing. People want authenticity. They don't want the sort of canned political responses. They don't want the establishment, because they're living with the results of the establishment decision making. And so our first commitment is authenticity and honesty about what we can do as a city. Our second commitment is that we actually meet people where they are. So this is a campaign that wants to engage people in their neighborhoods, on their streets, in their homes, and that's what we do. We are all over the city sharing this message, because we don't take for granted that people are just going to that they're just going to jump on board. We have to engage people, and that engagement is what people want from government. They want government that is responsive, government that actually appears to listen to the needs of the people, and they haven't had that for such a long time. I think that based upon our engagement across the city, there's an appetite for what is real. There's an appetite for ideas that can be implemented and not just empty rhetoric, and that's what our campaign is offering. And I think that's why we've had such a groundswell of support, both from our seniors all the way to millennials and everything in between.
I love the fact that you listen. I love that, and that's going to carry you a long way. Amara Enyia listens. Thank you.
Thank you.